Hello YouTube, I hope you're all well and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reviewing James Cameron's enormously successful classic Aliens. It is the second film in the very lucrative Alien franchise. The initial epic Alien was under the direction of Ridley Scott. I did a review of Alien recently and I will put a link to it down below. Aliens was released in 1986 and it is a science fiction film with a strong action influence, whereas its predecessor has far more of a gothic horror overtone to it. Aliens was both written and directed by James Cameron, which arguably enabled him to put his signature or stamp onto the film. The impresarios of Alien were those whom had produced Alien, and they were keen to initiate a sequel. However, Aliens was released later than it was anticipated. Cameron was chosen to construct Aliens, as Terminator, another of the illustrious director's masterpieces, had made an impression on this production team. Aliens garnered numerous awards post-release and enjoyed a plethora of accolades. Empire magazine generously acknowledged the film to be the greatest film sequel of all time. Ripley, the lone survivor from the initial film, is the protagonist, also in Aliens, and this is a recurrent theme throughout the franchise. However, this sequel offers an entirely different cinematic experience to its audiences than that of the first Alien film. Aliens is not a cookie-cutter generic sequel, and it is a commanding film in its own right. So, I shall just get started with my review and I hope you enjoy it. Alien's title sequence is relatively short and simplistic, yet unnerving all at once. The eerie music which accompanies the opening credits imparts an all-encompassing sense of misgiving and unease, and this is ever present in the film. Aliens begins picking up from where its forerunner had ended. Ripley, who is played by Sigourney Weaver, is rescued from her stasis by her employers, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, and we see her recovering in its medical unit. The viewer is privy to her nightmare, in which she is told that she has been in a dormant state within Nostromo's shuttle for 57 years. Of course, this is shocking news, and this causes a major anxious eruption in Ripley, and she imagines an alien bursting through her torso as it had done to her colleague in the first film. Ripley awakes with a start, and her sense of isolation is apparent. Instead of being sympathetic to her gruesome ordeal, the loss of her co-workers, and the inevitable ignition of Nostromo, her employers are more concerned with the ship's monetary losses. They don't believe her version of events. To add insult to injury, her flight officer licence is retracted. Ripley soon learns that during her stasis, the planetoid which Nostromo had landed on, after receiving messages from it, and subsequently where the alien eggs had been discovered, is now a human colony. She understandably feels that Weyland-Yutani have treated her in an unjust manner. So when Carter Burke, played by Paul Reiser, a representative of the company, approaches Ripley asking her for help and for advice, when contact from the colony is lost, she is loath to aid him. She reluctantly agrees to decipher the state of play and agrees to investigate the colony alongside Burke and a Marine military unit. Burke's rhetoric had worked on Ripley, who is somewhat vulnerable at this point, but she is also demonstrating great courage. Ripley's trauma is further intensified once she realises that a crew member called Bishop, played by Lance Henriksen, is in fact the company's android. In the previous film, Ash, the undercover android, had tried to murder Ripley. He had been mendaciously attempting to acquire an alien without any regard for his human colleagues. Bishop tries to convince Ripley that he has no pernicious agenda. Ripley and her fellow explorers, who are mainly soldiers, are transported to the colony via a dropship. The colony is a deserted dystopian landscape, devoid of human presence. I actually thought that the terrain was reminiscent of the opening scenes of the first two Terminator films, which Cameron had also directed. The setting is very bleak indeed, derelict with no sign of life save for a little girl who has managed to survive an alien barricade. Ripley and her team save this obviously traumatised but very resilient child, Rebecca, or Newt as she is called. Ripley bonds exceptionally well with Newt, and we see her as the natural empath that she is. The inexperienced colonial marine lieutenant, Gorman, played by William Hope, is evidently out of his depth, not capable of leading such an expedition. The viewer discovers that the colony's inhabitants have been captured by aliens and are being utilised as incubators for their offspring. Gorman ignores Ripley's request to let the troops retreat, much to some of the soldiers' peril. Gorman is rendered unconscious, and Corporal Hicks, played by Michael Biehn, takes control. He changes tack and decides to nuke the planetoid remotely. An alien attacks their ship, making it unsalvageable, so the crew is stranded on this ill-fated colony. The ever-avaricious Burke is intent on retaining alien samples from the colony's lab in order to obtain a profit from them. Ripley castigates him for mentioning this. There are many simultaneous character stories in this film, whether it is Gorman coming to terms with his weakness as leader, or the love interest between Ripley and Hicks. Burke's character develops into a thoroughly sinister turncoat as he releases two aliens into the lab where Ripley and Newt are sleeping. The plan, however, is foiled as they are rescued by the crew, who further learn of Burke's attempted sabotage. The crew are prevented from taking revenge on Burke as the aliens interpolate proceedings, and several combat sequences occur. Burke comes to a rather sticky end. Poor Newt is captured by aliens, yet a comprehensively armed Ripley comes to her rescue, and despite being pursued by the alien Queen, the two manage to regroup with Hicks and Bishop onto the dropship. As for the final scenes, it is very tense right until the closing sequence. Cameron's ability to maintain suspense is outstanding. The ending is definitive, but I won't allude to it. Aliens is a witty, watchable piece of cinema, and it could almost be a standalone film. It may not have the wealth of atmosphere as its precursor, but there are plentiful dialogues and the trajectory is constant. Aliens was filmed in Pinewood Studios and also in a decommissioned power station in Acton in London. I discovered that Ripley's bathroom was actually a British Airways aircraft loo, which is a genius act of creativity. Cameron had a different vision for his ship. He wanted it to be more accessible than Nostromo was. Cameron wanted the film to have a military and space theme, and he injected a subliminal Vietnam feel to proceedings. For example, the helicopter, like edge to the dropship, is very apparent. Also, in order to make weapons appear futuristic, they used Steadicam harnesses with guns mounted onto them. Sigourney Weaver was both critical and pleased with her script's portrayal, and Newt was played by a little girl whom had no commercial experience. She was chosen for her authenticity and a lack of glossy corporate demeanour. Aliens is a great triumph in that it offers an interesting and captivating experience for many. If you have any suggestions for film reviews or any comments on this film, please feel free to let me know. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back soon with another one. And if you like this, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.